Good morning, guys. Am I audible to all of you?
Morning, sir.
Okay. My screen is also visible to all of you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's start today's session. In our last session yesterday, we have discussed how we can perform join in LINQ, right? And we have discussed how we can join two data sources using both method syntax and query syntax, right? And today we are going to continue our discussion related to join. We will discuss how to join multiple tables. We will discuss how we can implement outer join. In outer join, how we can implement left outer join, right outer join, and full outer join. Is all these kinds of a join are supported in LinQ directly or not? If not directly, then how we can implement those things? We'll also discuss what is group join, right? If you remember, yesterday we have discussed there are two methods provided by the LinQ. One is join, another one is group join. So what is the use of that group join method? That what we are also going to discuss. And finally, we'll discuss what is cross join and how you can implement a cross join in LinQ. So those are the things that we are going to discuss in today's session. Let us start today's session. Right? Yesterday, if you remember, we have discussed uh, to perform join in LinQ, we are provided with the join method, and we have discussed the syntax. And the difference between these two syntax is the second overloaded version takes one I equality comparer, right? Otherwise, the rest of the parameters are going to be same. And if you remember, rest five parameters, the meaning is same. One of the parameter is outer data source, right? Outer data source. Second one is inner data source. Third one is outer key selector. Fourth one is inner key selector, and the last one is result selector. That means we need to call the join method on a data source, and that data source is going to be your outer data source. Within the join method, we need to pass the inner data source, right, to which we need to perform the join operation. Then the first key selector, what we are going to provide, that is going to be the outer key selector. That means the common key, right? The common key property of the outer data source that we need to specify. The next parameter, what we need to provide it is the inner key selector. That means the inner key data source common property. And result selector means what are the things you need to project as part of the result set. That is what you need to specify using the result selector. And we have discussed how you can project the result to anonymous type, how you can project the result to anonymous type with user defined property name, how we can project the result to a named type, right? There are three different ways we can project the result. So that is what we have discussed yesterday. Now we are going to discuss how we can perform the LinQ join with multiple data sources. Multiple data sources means we are having more than two data sources, right? Multiple means two data sources also comes under multiple data sources, but we have already discussed two data, how we can join two data sources in our last session, right? So today we are going to discuss how we can perform join operation in between three data sources, four data sources, and many more data sources. To understand this concept, right, what we are going to discuss, we are going to discuss, right, we are going to use these three data sources. If you remember, if you see, this is my employee data source. Employee data source contains few columns, right? Or you can say few properties. If you are considering this as the database table, then you can consider these are nothing but your columns. If you are considering this is a this is a class, then you can consider these are properties, right? Most of the time we are using entity framework. Entity framework means these properties are nothing but the columns in the database. So you can see this employee data source contain few records, right, with ID from 1 to 11, some name, and here we have storing some address ID as well as we are storing some department ID value. If you see some of the department value is 10, 20, 30, some of the department values are 0. And intentionally I'm providing these zeros values. Coming to the address data source, you can see this address data source contains some address 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11. And here you can see department data source. It is containing three columns. You can consider this is the master data. And this master contains three rows, one with department ID 10, 20, and 30. If you see between these three tables, there are some common properties. See, whether you are performing the joining between two data sources or three data sources doesn't matter. What is matter is there should be some common properties that are going to be involved in the join. If I am going to involve these three join in my these three data sources in my join, then there should be some common properties. What are the common properties in this case? In this case, if you see the employee data source, there is a property called address ID. This address ID is referred to the address table ID column. That means whatever value I'm storing here, this is exactly the same value as this address table ID column, right? And coming to this department ID, so this department ID, it is referring to the ID column of the department data. So that means now these three tables are interlinked with each other, right? So and further, if you see there are some properties, right? Few employees, right? Few employees do not have any department, right? So department ID 0 means they are not belonging to any department. And further, if you see few students sorry, I'm not talking about student, it's an employee data source. And if you remember, if you see, some of the address ID is not available in this data source, right? Here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 6, 7, 8 is not there. So, but here 6, 7, 8 is there. But these three are not available here, right? So, what is our requirement? Our requirement is to fetch those students which having the corresponding address as well as which having the corresponding department in the department table or in the department data. So if you see from this, if I'm going to join this data table, this data source with this data to from the employee with the address, then you will see that the employee ID 6780 address ID is not available. First, that means this 6780 simply will not be coming as part of our result set. Why? Because these address IDs are not available. And further, if 6780 is removed, then there are also employee with ID 45, right? The department ID is not available. That means this department ID 4 and 5, sorry, the employee ID 4 and 5, they are also not going to be part of our result set. Why? Because their corresponding department ID, what I'm showing 0, is not available. That means these five records, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they should not become as part of our result set. So what we need in our results? We need employee with either 1, 2, 3, 9, 10, 11. Why? Because these six are the employees whose details available in all the data sources. And we are not talking about outer join. We are talking about inner join. Inner join means the data which is exist in both the table will come as part of the result set. If data is not available in any of the data sources, then they are simply ignored. They are not going to become as part of the result set. So what exactly our requirement? Our requirement is we are having these three data sources and we need to perform the inner join between employee address and the department data source, and we need to fetch only those employees whose data is available in all these three data sources. If department ID is 0, that employee information should not be received. If the address ID, what I'm specifying here, if that address ID is not available in the address data source, then that employee should not become as part of our result set. If the address ID, if the department ID, what I'm specifying, if available in the address and the department data sources, then those employee information should become as part of our result set. And looking at this the three data sources, we can predict the result set as this, because these six employees are the employees which are having both the department and the address. So how we can implement this? We cannot go with the single join, because single join means only one join with the two data sources. But here we are not having two data sources. We are having three data sources. That means we are going to join multiple database table, or you can say multiple data sources. How we can do? Let us understand. So before understanding this, how we can perform, let us first create the model classes, right? So this is my employee class with the data source. So go to the employee, copy paste these things, right? This is my employee. So whatever I am showing in the diagram, this is exactly the same thing. This is a simple employee class having ID name, address ID, and a department ID properties. And this is the collection, which is going to return list of employees. And if you remember, 6780 is their address ID, 6780 department ID 0, or you can also consider some 40 is here, some 50 is there. That means this 40 and 50 is not available in the department, right? You can also make this as 0, there is no issue, because this 0 and this 40 50, these informations are not available in the respective address and the department table, right? Next, we need to create one class with the name address.cs, and within address.cs, we need to copy paste this code. Simple, this is the same thing what we have shown in the diagram. So this class having two properties, ID and address ID, and one method which is going to return list of addresses. And you can see address with ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11, and the corresponding addresses, right? So this is my address data source. And the last one is the department data source. As shown in the diagram, department data source is going to be having two properties, ID and name, and it is having a collection, right? It is having a method which is returning a collection of department, including IT, HR, and payroll, right? So these are the three data sources that we have shown in the image that we have now just created, right? This is my employee data source, this is my address data source, and this is my department data source. So once we have created the data sources, next what we need to do, we need to perform the joining operation. But remember guys, whenever we are going to perform the joining operation, right? So what is the mandatory things? The mandatory things is there should be a common column. If I'm joining two columns or two tables, then there should be common column between the two database column. Common in the sense the data type must be same. It doesn't matter whether the value, whatever you want, you can store. But what matter is data type. Right now, what is your requirement? We need to perform the joining operation between the employee with the address, employee with the department. That is what we need to perform. And now I'm going to show you both the approaches. You can go with the data, you can go with the method syntax, you can go with the query syntax, right? Let me first show you how you can perform the multiple joining, right, in LINQ using query syntax, and later I will explain how you can do the same thing using the method syntax, right? As mentioned earlier, right, you can project the data, right, using anonymous type, using or you can also project the data to a named type, right? Let me first show you how you can project the data to an anonymous type. Later I will show how you can project the data to a named type, right? First of all, you should have two data sources. So see, if I'm going to perform this join operation between two data sources, the syntax we know. What is the syntax? From EMP in employee.get all employees. That means uh, first of all, fetch all the employees information from the data source. And here the variable EMP, using that variable, you can access all the employee information, right? And now we need to join this employee data source with the address data sources. And we know the syntax, join ADRS, this is the variable. Using this variable, who is unmute? Okay. So using this ADRS variable, we need to fetch all the addresses, right? So from EMP in employee.get employee, this is my data source one. I'm joining this data source one with the data source two. And whenever I'm going with the join operation, right, we need to specify the condition. Condition means we need to specify what are the common columns in between the data sources. On based on what common column, I need to perform the joining operation. That is what we need to tell to the link queue. And here we need to use the on operator. And this is my EMP1. This is the first data source. Dot address ID equals to ADRS.id. So basically, if you go to the employee table or employee class, you will find one column called address ID. This is the common column which is going to be same as the ID of the address. So in between the address and employee, the column is ID and the address ID. Address table ID column is same as employee table address ID column, and that is what I'm showing here. So this thing we have discussed in our yesterday session, but now this is not done. Now this is not done. What it means? It means we are not going to simply join employee with the department, employee with the address. Third table is also there. Third data source is also there. That is also needs to be involved as part of the joining. Then the process is going to be sent. What is the meaning? What it means? It means we need to write another join operator, and now we need to join with which data source? We need to join with the department data source. So I'm calling department.get all department method. So this will return me the list of departments, and I can access all the departments using this DAPT variable. But now you need to identify, I'm going to join this table with the address table or with the employee table. So is there any link between the address and the department table? Guys, tell me, is there any link between address and the department table? Guys,
The ID, no.
is there any department ID stored inside this address table?
No.
No.
So is there any department ID stored in employee table?
Yes.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
means there is some link between employee and department table, right? So that is the reason why whenever you are performing the joining operation, multiple joining operation, you need to identify. If I am introducing the third join in the query, then I need to join this third data source with which data source? Whether with the first data source or whether with the second data source. If a first data source, you need to use employee.department ID equals to dpt.id. If the second data source, then you need to use adrs.department ID equals to department ID. And if you are having fourth table, then the process is going to be same. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right. Once you join this three database table, now you can access the employee information using EMP variable, addresses using ADRS variable, department information using DPT variable. So now project the data, and this is very straightforward. What you need to do, select a new ID, EMP. So I need to paste the ID from the employee table, emp.id. I need to paste the employee name, so emp.name. I'm storing that employee name inside a variable called employee name. dpt.name. What is the dpt.name? dpt name is going to return me the department name. adrs.address line, it is going to return me the address. So this is how you need to project the result to an anonymous type. Let me copy the code, paste it inside the program class, check for any compilation error. If any, yeah, there are some compilation error. Okay, let me comment this table. This is not required as of now, right? Let me run the application. Still some compilation error. What is, okay, employee. Let me comment this also. So currently we are using only department address, employee and program class, right? So you can see we are only getting those 6 employees which are having department address, or we are getting some employees which do not have any department or do not have any addresses. We are getting only those records which are exist in all the 3 data sources, and that is the use of inner join. Inner join means only fetching the data which are exist in both the data sources. If not exist, then it will not, it will simply ignored by the query. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this type of a query you will you will write in your uh, what I can say, in your application, right? So if you want to perform some order by, right, you want to store the data in order by name descending, you need to write like this. order by emp dot what an employee name. So or rest of the things is going to be same, right? You want to sort the data in the name in ascending order. You have to write this, right? So now you can run the application and you can see the data is going to be sorted in the name in ascending order, right? So whatever operation you want, you can apply. So this is how you need to write the LINQ join. But in this example, we are projecting the data to an anonymous type. Instead of anonymous type, what I want to project the data to a named type. For that purpose, what I'm creating one class called employee result. And in employee result, creating the ID. So instead of ID, let me give this column as employee ID, employee name, department name, and the address line, right? So now what I can do is I can take this one, I can go to here, put this one. So now the column name is not ID, it is going to be employee ID, right? So with these changes, right, you need to do the changes also here. So instead of doing all these changes, because this class I'm using at many different many places, so what I'm simply I'm making this as IT. See, this name you can give any name. It is not mandatory that the column this employee result property name should be same. So you can see your name. I'm providing department name. Here name I'm providing a department employee name. Here address line I'm putting this as it is, right? So it is up to us whatever name we want we can give. Right. So with these changes now run the application and you will see the output as expected. Right. So again the output in same order. Now if you want to do the same thing using the method syntax, then how you can do this? Performing inner join using method syntax is little bit tricky and it will be little bit difficult to understand, right? Whenever we are performing the joining between two data sources, that is fine. You can use any syntax. Method syntax, query syntax, there is no issue. But I personally feel it is easier to use query syntax, right? Query syntax in the sense the joining of whatever I'm showing here right now easier than the method syntax. But method syntax that doesn't mean you cannot write a query using method syntax. Method syntax still exists, but that will a little bit difficult to understand. Let us see how you can do this, right? Say to perform the joining using method syntax, right? What we know? We know we are having the join method. And we know that join method, right? We know that join method is going to be worked in such a way that, okay, let me, before that, what I need to do? I need to take these things. Okay. Okay. So if you want to work with join method, what are the thing is required? Outer data source, inner data source, outer key selector, inner key selector, and result selector. Can we skip any of this parameter while performing the join? Is it possible to skip any parameter or all are mandatory? If you are creating a method which is taking two integer parameter, can I call that method by passing a single integer value?
No.
Then if the method signature accept five parameters, right, then can I skip any of this parameter while calling the join method?
No.
No.
That means all these things are mandatory. With this keep in mind, let us try to understand the method syntax, right? First of all, you should have the outer data source. What is the first parameter? Outer data source. And in this case, employee.get all employees, it is nothing but your outer data source. And if you go to the join method, right, then you will see that The first parameter is nothing but your I enumerable of a T source, right? So this is nothing but outer parameter, means on one of the data source on which you need to call this method. And that is nothing but your outer data source. Here we are calling this method on this get all employees data source. So then within the join method, what are the things we need to pass? We need to provide the inner data source. We need to provide the outer data source.
You know,
Okay. So basically, what are the parameters? Once you call the join method over the on the outer data source, first parameter you need to pass the inner data source. So what we are passing address dot get all addresses. This is my inner data source one, right? And the second and third parameter is nothing but the outer key selector and the inner key selector. And if you look at this, EMP level 1 such that EMP level 1 dot address ID, you can give any name. For intentionally, I'm providing this as EMP level 1, right? So this is nothing but my outer key selector. If you go to the employee class, then you will find address ID property. And this is my this is outer key selector, and my inner key selector is nothing but the inner data source common property. And what is the inner data source? Address. In address table or in address class, you will find this id property. So this is my inner key selector. And once you have these two things, then you need to have the result selector. And here, what I'm doing, I'm providing the result selector to one anonymous type, and whatever the employee data and address level data, right? I'm providing as it is, right? You can create any anything, but I'm providing the actual value as it is, right? And then again, I need to call the join method. And if you remember, whenever you want to call the join method, you need to call the join method over a data source. Yes or no? If you want to call the join method, then you need to call that join method on the which data source?
outer data source.
Outer data source. Because within the join method, we need to pass this four method, and we need to call the join method over the outer data source. Now, in this example, so whatever join operation perform, whatever it is projecting, that will become the outer data source, and over that outer data source, I'm going to call this join method. Clear?
Yes.
Right? So now you need to remember, this is my outer data source, this is my inner data source, this is inner data source for this outer data source. But whenever I'm calling this join method, this will become the inner data source. But for this inner data source, the outer data source is nothing but this result set which is created by this join method. Clear, guys?
yes.
Yes.
So now what you need to do? So in my join method, I'm going to provide the data source name. What is the inner data source I'm providing? I'm providing the department collection. And this is the important thing that you need to remember. So in now, what is my requirement? I need to join this department data source with this data source. And inside this data source, there are two values. One is employee, another one is the address level. So in employee table, in employee data source, right? Inside this employee level one variable, right? We are having the department ID, and that department ID I want to compare with the department data source ID column. Clear? Here it contains both the things. Employee level one, if you want to access the employee information, you can access using this employee level one variable. If you want to access address collection, you need to use this address level one, right? And you know how you need to specify the what I can say, how you need to specify the key properties, right? And if you remember inside this first run, EMP level 1, this is the user defined. You can give any name. Then using that name, and you need to access the properties. Similarly, here inside this data source, I'm also providing the name as anything. What name I'm providing? Employee level 2. And in employee level 2, you cannot directly access the address ID. If you want to access the address ID, then you need to use employee level 1. And that is what I'm showing here. Employee level 2 dot employee level 1 dot department ID. And this is going to be my key selector. So the point that you need to remember is here you cannot access the ID property directly, because for this get employee, right, is not the data source. For this, which one is the data source? Employee level 1. So using employee level 1, you can access the component property. And for this joining department, this is the inner data source, you can directly get the ID property. And once you perform this joining operation, then project the result. And here I'm projecting employee level 2 and department level 1. Right? Employee level 2 and department level 1. So the point here you need to remember is, right, while projecting the actual data, if something available inside this department data source, you can access using department level 1 variable. But something which is accessed inside the department, inside the employee and address table, you cannot access them directly. You need to access employee level 2 dot employee level 1, and then you can access the address information and the name information like this. See, here I'm accessing the employee ID. So how I'm going to access E dot employee level 2 dot employee level 1 dot ID. If you want to access the employee name, then how you can access E dot employee level 2 dot employee level 1 dot name. If you want to access the address value, then how you can access E dot employee level 2 dot address level 1 dot address line. But if you want to access the department, then how you can access E dot department level 1 dot name. So this is how you need to perform the LINQ join based on multiple tables, right? So let me copy the code and go to the program class main method and project the same. The same thing I have done. This is my employee data source. I'm performing the joining operation with the address, and here I'm projecting the data into employee level 1 and address level 1 variable. Then on this data source, what this join method return, right? On that data source, I'm I'm performing another join. And in this case, I'm just using this employee level 1 to get the department ID, and that is what I'm comparing with the department data source ID column. And again, I'm providing this name as employee level 2 and department level 2. That is what I'm projecting to an anonymous type. And when I'm creating the final output, I can access the data in that way also. If you want to access something which is available inside employee and address, then you need to go step by step. First, you need to go to level 2. From level 2, you need to go to level 1, and then from level 1, you can access the property. And same in the case of address also. So first, you need to go to the employee level 2, and from employee level 2, you need to go to address level 1, and then you can access the property. But if something available inside a database department, then you can go to department level and directly you can access the name. That is what I'm showing here. With these changes, now run the application. You are getting the same output as expected, right? So instead of projecting the output to an anonymous type, if you want, then you can project the same thing to a named type like this. With this change, now run the application, and again, you will see the same output as expected. You are getting the same output. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right? So
Yeah,
what
clear,
is
sir.
my thoughts on this? So my thought is, if you want to fetch the data from two data sources, then you can use either method syntax or query syntax. But if you want to fetch the data from more than two data sources, then it is easier to use query syntax rather than the method syntax. But there are no performance difference whether you use the method syntax and the query syntax. Right? Most of the time, if you are writing very complex queries, then it is better to use query syntax because we are acquainted with the SQL, and query syntax is very much similar to our SQL syntaxes. And if you do not have that much of a experience into SQL, and if you are having good experience only on .NET method, all these things, then you can go with the method syntax like this. Any question from anyone? Guys?
Question, sir. No question, sir.
Okay, fine. The next what we are going to discuss is group join, right? So as we discussed, there are two joining methods provided by LINQ, right? One is join and another one is group join. And we have already discussed join is basically used to perform the inner join between the data sources, right? Involved in the join. Similarly, what is the group join? Group join. See, we have already discussed a group by method, right? What is the use of a group by method? If you are having a data source and if you want to group the data based on the key, then in that case, you are using group by method. But what if you want to perform the join and then you want to group the data, then in that case, you need to use group join, right? In LINQ, we can apply the group join on two or more data sources, right? If you are having a single data source, if you are having a single table and based on the column, some column, you want to group the data, then you cannot use group join. So the name itself saying group join. Join means that group join means what? There should be some joining, and based on the join, you need to group the data. Then you need to use group join. If you are only having a single data source and you want to group the data, that we have already discussed using the group by method and group by operator. Now, what is our requirement? So we need to use this group join method on two or more data sources based on a common key, like the inner join, and then it produces the result set in the form of a group. So in simple word, we can say that group join is used to group the result set based on the common key. See, if we are performing any kind of a joining, what it means? It means at least two data sources required, at least some common property is required. And based on the common property and based on the link queue or common property, it is going to perform the join. And this is not different with the group join method. Group join means there should be two data sources and there should be some common properties between the data sources. And once we perform the group join, then it will produce the data in a hierarchical manner, right? That means each item from the data source is paired with a set of correlated items from the second data source. How it is performing the hierarchical data, how it is grouping the data by performing the joining operation, practically we will see. But before that, let's have a look at the method signature, right? So the signature is also same as the joining method signature, right? You can see the same outer data source, inner data source, outer key selector, inner key selector, and a result selector, right? Apart from that, there is something called equality comparer, which we are not going to take because we have already discussed what is the use of a comparer, right? So these are the five parameters that this group join method is taking. Now let us understand how we can perform the joining, right? How we can perform the group join and how exactly the group join method is going to work. And for this, we are going to use the employee and department data sources, right? Let me first copy this code, go to the employees table, paste it here, right? So you can see the employee table, employee data source having three properties. What are the properties? ID name and department. And also this class having one method which is returning me list of employees. So currently I have hard coded these things, but in real time you will get this information from a database, right? And the next data source what we are going to discuss is department data source, right? So this is my department data source. Address data source is not required, and currently I'm not going to use this employee data. And here it's a very simple class having two properties, ID name, and also it is going to return all the departments that are available in the database, right? So currently you can see three departments: IT, HR, and then sales, right? So now we need to perform the group join. So what is our requirement, right? Our requirement is to group the employees by department, right? If we, all the employees and their corresponding department name is available in a single data source, then we can use the group by method. But now the department information is available in a different data source, employee information is available in a different data source. And again, we need to fetch only those employees which are having the corresponding department. If one employee does not have the department, then we don't want to fetch that employee as part of our result set. See, if you see, this is one of the employee which department ID is 0. And apart from that, all other employees are having some department either 10, 20, 30. And you can see 10, 20, 30 department ID value is also exist in the department. Now, what is our requirement? Our requirement is to group the employees by department. That means we need to print department name IT, and inside IT, what are the employee who are the employee belongs to the IT department. We want to print those employee information. If one employee does not have any corresponding department, we simply need to ignore that employee from the results. That is what our requirement. And for that purpose, we cannot simply go with the simple group by method, which we have already discussed. For that purpose, what we need to do, we need to perform the group join. Let's see how we can perform. The syntax as already discussed, it is similar to our join, right? So you can see department dot get all department. This is my outer data source. Group join method. Within the group join method, I'm providing employee dot get all employees. This is my inner data source. And then I'm specifying the outer key selector, that is department. Department is the outer data source. So department dot ID, this is my outer key selector. Employee dot department ID, this is my inner key selector. Then I'm projecting the result to an anonymous type, and I'm projecting all the department and employee information, right? Let me copy this code and show you the output, right? See, so this is my group join with method. So this is my outer data source. You can see here, I'm calling the group join method. To the group join method, I'm passing four information. What is the inner data source? What is the outer key selector means? So outer key means, so this is my outer data source. What is the common key property name? IT. What is the inner key selector common property? Employee table, common key in department. And then I'm projecting this department and employee to one anonymous type, right? And then I'm printing the data. So here you need to remember, so here it is using a for each loop to fetch all items, right? So whenever we are looping through, so what it will give? It will give the department names, right? What is the department name? IT dot department. You can see this is the department dot name. And then on this department, right, there is also called a collection called employee, right? You can access the employees like item dot employee, and this item dot employee will give you the list of employees of that particular department. That means if you see currently there are three departments, right? IT, HR, and sales. So whenever that means this for loop will run for three times, right? And then it will let assume that first it run for the IT department. That means here the department name is going to be IT. And here item.emp will give you the list of employees who are belongs to the IT department, and those information I'm printing here. Completed second time, it will give the HR department name and HR department employees information. You don't think that it is going to be give only the HR department and name. It is also going to give you the ID. Why? Because we are projecting all the information. This DPT EMP means what? All the complete department information, the complete employee information. That is what we are fetching, right? Now run the application and see the output. IT department 1679, HR department 2510, sales department 3411. But you will not find the employee whose ID is 80, right? If you see there is an employee whose name is Tarun, department whose ID is 8, but department ID is 0. As department ID 0 does not exist in the department collection, and as we are grouping the employees by department, so that employee information you will not find here. Clear, guys? Guys, clear?
Yes.
Any question from anyone? Any question from anyone?
No.
Okay, fine. So this is one of the use of group join. So in interview, you might be faced one question: what is the difference between join and the group join? So basically, group join is also one kind of join. In the case of a group join, it is grouping the data in the form of a hierarchical structure. Hierarchical structure means like this. This is one hierarchy and this is another hierarchy. So basically, it is basically used to group the data. And if you are simply using join, then it will not group the data. So now we will understand how we can perform the same thing using the query syntax. Guys, remember there is no such operator group join available in query syntax. In LINQ query syntax, there is no such group join operator is available. Then how we can implement this? How we can implement the group join using query syntax? Here we need to use the LINQ inner join along with the into operator. We need to perform the LINQ inner join and we need to use the into operator, right? And how we are going to do this. So for a better understanding, what I have done, I have divided the what I can say, I have divided the result set into I have divided the query into three sections. First section, as mentioned, we have to perform the inner join. Second section, we need to use the into operator. And third section, we need to project the result set, right? So if you see, this is nothing but a simple inner join. From department in department dot get all department, that means fetching all the department information, joining with the employees information, and based on what condition we are going to perform the join, that is the common properties we need to specify. And here in the department table or department collection, there is a property called ID, and this ID property value I need to compare with the employee data source department ID column value or ID property value. This is nothing but inner join, that what we have already discussed. So if you want to perform the group join, then what he is saying here, we need to use LINQ inner join along with the into operator, right? Whatever data this query is returning, that I need to project into the employee group. So into employee group. So grouping the result set. And then what we need to do, we need to project the department information along with the employee groups information, right? Using the result selector. So this is the syntax. First inner join, second group the result set, third one is project the result set, right? And while projecting the result set, you need to project the department collection along with the employee groups, right? That what we are creating using the into operator. So this is how you need to use the query syntax. Let me copy these things and go to my Visual Studio. And the same thing I have done here. This is my outer data source. This is my inner data source. And I'm joining this outer data source with inner data source based on this joining condition. And then projecting the joining result to this group. And I'm finally result. And this is my final output. or final result set which include each department and corresponding employees. And this is the same for each loop which we have used in our earlier examples, right? You can say IT dot department dot name, right? And if you want to print the count, then that is also possible, right? Let me modify this code, right? Right. If you want to know, so IT dot department dot name, then if you want to know how many employees are there, then what you need to do, item dot item dot employee groups dot count method is also there, right? So you can use count method, right? So this will give you the list of number of employees belongs to that particular department. And here I'm using why employee groups, because in the projection you can see we are projecting department and employee group. So this department will give the department name, and this employee groups will give you the information about the number of employees belonging to that particular department, right? Now let me run the application. See? So department name is IT, count is 4, and here you can see 4 employees. HR count is 3, sales count is what I can say 3. So this is how you can perform the group join in LINQ. Clear, guys? Using the query syntax. Directly group join is not available. You need to split first inner join, then you have to use info operator, and finally you need to project the results. This is the 3 simple steps that is you need to follow while performing the group join. In this case, I prefer to use group join method over this query syntax because that method is available. We do not need to use this extra or additional things what I'm doing here. Clear, guys, or any question? Right? So now what I'm going to do, so instead of projecting, right? If you see in the previous examples, here we are projecting the result set to anonymous type. Instead of projecting the result set to anonymous type, now what I'm going to do, I want to project the information, right, to a named type. For that purpose, what I need to use uh, so what I need to do, first of all, I need to create a class or create a type. So here the class name is group employees by department, and then I need to project the result to these things, right? So what I'm doing here, this is my method syntax. So now I'm not projecting to anonymous type, I'm specifying the type name, and here department and employees. And if you see here, I'm creating list of employees. So here I need to convert to this to list method. If it is not, if not list, if you use I enumerable, give me, guys, give me 1 minute. Right. So if you use I enumerable, then here no need to call this to list method, right? So no need to call this to list method, and whenever you access uh, within this for each loop, the query is going to be executed, right? So the same thing here, what I'm doing, I'm performing the group join, right? This is my outer data source, this is my inner data source, these are my key selector, and projecting the output to a named type. And the same thing here, this is my outer data source, this is my inner data source. I'm performing the join based on this condition, and then I'm projecting the result into this employee group, right? Because if I'm not projecting, then it is simply going to be performed like a inner join. But we are not here to perform the inner join. We are here to perform the group join. For group join, you need to use this into syntax, right? And then I'm projecting the output. And then using for each loop, I'm fetching the department name and printing the employees of each department, right? So you can see like this, the data is printed now. Now, what is our requirement? We do not need to print the employee name like this. What is our requirement? We need to sort the employee name. Is this possible, guys? I want the name to be printed in descending order by their name or ascending order by their name. If that is the requirement, and what changes and the changes needs to be done where? Can anybody tell me where I need to do the changes? Guys, anybody having any idea? This is not the requirement. Your requirement is you need to perform the group join, but whenever you are displaying the name, you need to display the name in ascending order. How you can do this? Okay, just tell me which property storing the names. Guys,
Group join MS.
I'm talking about which property storing the employees names, employees information. Department property or employees property?
Employees.
Employees property. That means we need to do something with this employees property so that it will sort the data. So then you just tell me to sort the data, what method I need to use? What
Order.
method?
Order by.
Order by. And using this order by method, we need to specify something. What I need to specify? We need to specify the column name based on which the data is going to be sorted. And what is the column name?
Name.
Simple these things. And you can also do the same thing here. Employees group, right? Dot order by, right? X start, X dot name. Simple things. So I don't know why you guys are thinking so much. Already we have discussed this method. Then we should use this method directly and run the application. See, now the data is sorted or not? The data is sorted. See, why 7169? Why? Because the H comes first, then P, then S A M, then S A N. And in the dictionary order, the data is displayed here. Clear, guys?
Yes,
Any
sir.
question,
Yes.
any question from anyone? So, guys, don't think that the simple query you are going to write. If you are working with real-time application, means this type of a complex queries you are going to write. Right, so you will find joining is there, order is there, select clause is there, right? Multiple join is there, everything is going to be there. You have to use named type, you have to use anonymous type, but I generally prefer to use named type over anonymous type, right? So this is how, see, instead of projecting, see, if I'm using anonymous type, right, then can I still specify the property name, user defined property name? Yes, that is possible. Simply remove this. There is no issue, right? Simply remove this. Now you are creating an anonymous type with the user defined name. And if you do not specify this thing, then it is also fine. Then it is also fine. If you do not specify this thing, then also it is fine, right? Then also it is fine. Right? But here department is not there. What is there? Here DPT is there, and here employee groups is there. Clear? Right? And here you cannot apply that order by method. Yeah, you can apply, no issue. X dot name. But once you apply, then what you need to do, you need to project this to a variable. And here I'm projecting to this variable. Right? This is the thing that you need to do. So here I'm projecting with the same type, but if you want, you can give any user defined name. So department equals to DPT, and here I can write employees like this. And once I do this, then you need to change this to department, and you need to change to this employees, right? So now you can run the application. See, we are getting the data and output as expected, right? So guys, you have to be serious, right? Until and unless you are not doing practicing, right? If you are only fixed with the examples what I am showing, then your knowledge is going to be fixed. You have to enlarge your knowledge. Enlarge in the sense, what you need to do, you need to do different types of example. You need to do more and more practices, right? You need to introduce many different things in the same example, right? If I'm not providing this order by right things, then you can also apply those things by yourself. You can also apply some kind of a filtering condition, right? So filtering condition in the sense, now what is my requirement? I want to provide this query, but what is my requirement out of all this department? I want to group the department, but not the HR department employees. Then how you can do this? I want to group the employees, but excluding the HR department. If that is the case, then how you can do this? Can anybody tell me? Guys, tell me how you can do this. You understood my requirement? So what is this? This is the data source. Yes or no?
Yes.
This data source currently returning how many records?
3.
3 records. But which record you don't want? You don't want the HR department. And if you want to provide that filter, then how you can do this? What is the
That
condition?
where
Where x such that
X
x dot
I,
name
ID no.
not equals to
HR.
right. So guys, you have to do these things, right? Otherwise, your experience is going to be limited. Right, and the sales department is there, right? Else, another option is there. You don't want that filter condition there. Then what you can do is you can write like this, where you can also do these things, right? So you can also do these things. What is the difference between these things? See, in this case, you are fetching all the data. Later, you are applying the filter. Here, while fetching the data, I'm applying the filter. And we have already discussed what we have discussed. We can do these things, right? We can do these things means we can create a LINQ query with multiple statements. This is the example, right? So you can apply where condition, you can apply order by condition, right? And everything is possible, right? You can see this is the name and all these things it is provided. So you have to use these things. Here you want to sort the department names, right? You don't want filter, but what you want the department names filter order by the department, right? So you can write order by x dot department dot name. You can use these things. Now it is not going to, it is going to sort the employees by their name, but also it is going to sort first, it will sort the department names, and then it is going to sort the employee name. See, HR, IT, and sales. So these are the things you need to do practices by yourself, because we have already discussed order by method. We have already discussed where condition. And it's not possible for me to include everything in each and every example. I'm going to keep focus on the things what I'm going to discuss. If already we have discussed something, that you can also include as part of the query. So see, if you are writing any SQL join, in the inside that join, you might have some filter, you might use some order by clause, you might use some group by clause, right? Many things you can do, and those things are also possible using your LINQ queries. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes.
So more and more practices, only practices is required. Next, what we are going to discuss is left join, right? Left join, because uh, there are different types of a join. Inner join means only the common element. Instead of a common element, if we want some other data, right, which might be exist in the left side data source, which not exist in the right side data source, right, which exist in the right data source, right? If you want to fetch all the data, right, that means for that purpose we are going to use outer join. Right, outer join, basically it is going to fetch the data from both the data sources, whether the condition is matched or not matched based on the requirement. If you want to fetch the data, then you need to go with outer join. And again, outer join is classified into three different types. One is left outer join, one is right outer join, another is full outer join. Let us understand the left join first, then I will show you how you can perform the right outer join. So what is left outer join? Can anybody tell me what is left outer join in SQL? By looking at this diagram, can anyone tell me what you mean by left outer join?
It
It
includes all the
selects all
elements
the
from
rows
the left
from the
table,
left table and
the
matching
common.
rows from the right.
Sorry, one by one.
No.
It involves all the elements from left and common elements from right table.
And in that case, the element which are not exist in the right hand side table, for that for those element, what value it will store?
Default values.
Default value.
It will show null.
Null.
Yeah, continue. Yeah, Rising, you can speak.
For non-matching values from the right table, it will store null, and
Exactly.
in left outer join, it will select matching rows from the right table and all the rows from the left table.
Okay, exactly. So in this case, what exactly it will do? You can see this is the common element. So in the case of a left outer join, it is going to fetch all the elements which are exist in both the data sources plus the non-matching element from the right hand side, from the left hand side table. In that case, the left hand side table, right column will take null value, right? So if you see, this is a join in which the data from first data source is going to be written irrespective whether it has any correlated data present in the second data source or not. If you are going with the left outer chain, means all the data from the left hand side table is going to be written. Whether the corresponding data in the right hand side table exists or not doesn't matter. If it exists, those data will be written. If not exist, it will put null value for such data, right? That means left outer join is used to retrieve all the matching records from both the data sources, or all the matching elements from both the data sources involved in the join, as well as non-matching records from the left hand side data source. In this case, on matching data will take null value, right? If this is not clear at the moment, don't worry, we will understand this with examples. And once we discuss examples, you will get better idea. But if you know how left outer join is implemented in databases like SQL Server, MySQL, and Oracle. Guys, give me 1 minute. Okay. So basically, if you are having some experience or some knowledge in databases, and in databases, if you know how left outer join is implemented, how exactly left outer join is work, then it will not be that difficult. But if you do not know, then also it's fine. We are going to discuss these things practically, right? But the question is how we can implement left outer join in LINQ, right? So guys, remember there are no such left join syntaxes or left join keyword or method is available in LINQ. So what you need to do in order to implement left join, you need to use the into keyword along with the default if empty method. And so basically we need to use two things. One, we need to use into keyword, and another option is we need to use the default if empty method. So what is the into keyword? How we are going to use this into keyword? What is this default if empty method, right? Everything we will see practically. Let us understand with some examples, right? So for that purpose, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the employees. For this example, we are going to use employee and address system, right? So this is my employee data source. I have gone and I have copy pasted these things. Uh, no need to explain this class. This is a class having 3 properties and 1 method which is going to return some hard-coded list of employees. Next, what I'm going to create, I'm going to create another class called address, and within this address class, right, what I'm going to do within this address class, I'm going to create a property, two property and one method, and that method is going to return me some hard-coded list of addresses, right? And if you look at these two tables, right, this is the employee table, and in employee table, I am having 6 employees, and in address table, I'm having 4 addresses. That means 2 employees does not have any address. And what are the employees? 3 and 4. And in my example, I want to make this employee class, right? This data source as the left hand side table, and this is going to be my right hand side table, right? Now forget about the left outer join. If I'm implementing one inner join between this get employees method and this get addresses method, right? Then how many records are going to be written as part of the result set?
4.
Why? Because these two will not be included as part of the result set. Why? Because the address ID what we have specified here 0, which is not exist in the addresses table. But what is my requirement? My requirement is I need to return, say my requirement is I need to display all the employee informations, right? All the employee info. I'm saying I need to display all the employee information, whether that employee having some the corresponding address ID or not in the address data source. Try to understand my requirement. I need to display all the employee information, means I employee with ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This name I want to display, whether the employee having this address ID or not in the address system. If the employee having the address ID, display that address. If not, if the address is not available, then also don't ignore those employee information. Still display the employee information by saying that the employee address is not available. That is what my requirement. That means what? I need to paste the data from both the tables which are exist plus the data which are not exist, right? Not exist in the sense, if I'm going with the joining condition, then these two employees information plus these two employees information are available in both the databases, in both the data sources. So that means the common element which are available in both the data sources, I have to retrieve. In that case, the address and the name and ID, everything is going to be represented, plus the non-matching element from the left-hand side table. And in that case, the non-matching element is nothing but this employee ID 3 and 4. That employee information also I need to display in the output. That is what my requirement. And if that is your requirement, then for that requirement, you need to go with left outer join. In left outer join, it is going to retrieve all the matching records involved in all the matching records available in both the data sources plus the non-matching records which are available in the left hand side data source, right? In this case, right? Okay, let me do one more thing. Let me introduce to two more addresses, 15 and 16. Address line 15 and 16. So in this case, if you see these two addresses, right? These two addresses are not exist in this case. Right? These two addresses are not exist in this employee collection. Employee with address wide 1256. 1256 is there, but 15 and 26, 15 and 16 is not there. That means in that case, if I am performing the left outer join, then what are the matching element? 1256. These are the employee with ID 1256 and 1256. This address ID are the matching element. So those matching element 1256 and those four employee information will be retrieved. Plus the non-matching element from the right, from the left hand side table. If I'm making this employee collection as the left hand side table, then these two employee information will be retrieved, but not these two informations. Then but not these two information. Now you might have one question, sir. My requirement is I want to fetch all the common elements, right, which are exist in both the data sources, plus the non-matching element from the right hand side table. Right hand side table means if this is your left hand side table, then definitely it is going to be your right hand side table. And if you want to retrieve the matching elements, means address ID 1256 or employee ID 1256 plus the non-matching element, in this case this two one, then you need to go with what join? Right outer join. So right outer join means common elements from both the data sources plus the non-matching element from the right hand side table or right hand side database. If you are going with the left outer join, what it means? It means common element from both the data sources plus the non-matching element from the left hand side table. And whenever you are working with the left outer join or right outer join, so for the non-matching elements, in this case, for the non-matching element, this employee data, the corresponding address address, right? The corresponding address will become null. And if you are going with right outer join, right, for these two non-matching record, right, the corresponding employee information will become null. That is how you need to implement left outer join and right outer join. What is cross join? We will discuss later. First, let us discuss these two things. Clear, guys? Guys?
Yes, sir, clear.
Right. So now let us first see how we can implement left outer join using both query syntax and method syntax. Then we'll move to right outer join. Right. So in order to implement left outer join using query syntax, what we need to do? We need to call the default if empty method on the result set of a group join. This is the point that you need to remember, right? I will come to that, but how you can perform with a method syntax. Let us first see how you can implement this using query syntax. So query syntax means what we need to do. In order to perform the left outer join using query syntax, we need to call the default if empty method on the results of a group join. And how we can implement a group join using core syntax that we have just discussed. How? Let me show you the things. Already we have the query, right? So if you want to perform the group join, then what are the things you need to do? You have to perform one inner join. Whatever the result, you need to project using the into operator. That is what the group join using query syntax. And how you can implement the group join using method syntax? Group join method is available now. Similarly, if you want to perform the left outer join using query syntax, then what you need to do? First of all, you need to implement the group join, and then you need to call the default method on the results of group join. See how. The step one, implement the left outer join. Right? In step one, you have to implement the left outer join. We have two data sources. One is employees, another is addresses. So this is the employee data source from EMP in get employee details from join. So add in address.get address, and then you have to provide the joining condition, and whatever the result you need to project using the into operator. This is nothing but the group join using the query syntax. Once we have done this group join, then what we need to do? We need to call the default if empty method. So in this case, which one is the left-hand side table? In this case, the EMP, the get employees details, this is nothing but your left-hand side table or left-hand side data source. After the join keyword, whatever the data source you specified, that is going to be your right-hand side data source. So as we are performing the left outer join, what it means? It means I need to fetch all the employees information, whether the employee having the corresponding address or not. If the corresponding address is available, fetch that address. If not available, then please include null value, that is the default value based on the data type. And here address is a reference type, and as address is a reference type, what is the default value of a reference type? Default value is null. That means we need to specify these things, right? So once you perform this group join, then you need to tell to the query, to the LINQ, to the .NET framework, hey, Mr. .NET framework, I'm going to perform a LINQ left outer join. So what you need to do is, as this is the left outer join, please include all the employee information from the employee table, whether that employee having the corresponding address or not in the address table. If the address is empty, if the address is not available, then please include the default value, and you need to tell these things by using these things. Right? So already we have projected the data into the employee address group. Then the right, in that case, this is the left hand side table, this is the right hand side table. In this case, the right hand side table, that is nothing but right hand side collection, that is nothing but address. You need to tell to the LINQ, you need to tell to the entity framework, hey, Mr. Entity Framework, if the address is not available, please make it as the default value. Please store the default value. How you are going to call, how you are going to tell? Using this employee address group. How? See, you need to call the default if empty method on this employee address group variable, which you created using the group join. And here from address in employee address group dot default if empty group. That means you can access the addresses, and this address will contain every information in the sense what? Now whether the address is available or not. If available, that address is going to be there. If not available, then it will store the default value based on the data type. And what is the default value? The default value is null for the reference type. Let me show you these things practically. See, so performing left outer join using LINQ query syntax. First of all, you need to identify which one is the left data source. Left data source is employee. Which one is the right data source? Right data source is addresses. Note, left and right data sources matter. What it means? Now, if you alter these data sources, the output is going to be vary, and that makes sense because we are going for left join means we need to retrieve all the information from the left hand side table, whether the corresponding data available in the right hand side table or not, that doesn't matter. If available page, not available, store the null value. And here, this is nothing but your group join, this is nothing but your inner join, this is nothing but inner join, you know. And if you want to implement group join, then you need to project the output to this variable. And once this group join is completed, to perform the left outer join, you need to call the default if empty method. Default if empty method means it will store the default value if the value is empty. Empty, if the value is empty, if the corresponding value is not available, then it will store the default value. And finally, we are projecting the employee data and this address data. This address now contain both, whether the matching data is available or not, that information it is going to store, right? And now we are looking through the value. See, here you can see name and you can access the employee name by using this EMP, and address you can access using the address. But here guys, you need to take some careless. You need to be sure. You need to be write the code in such a way that you should avoid null reference exception, right? If you remember, we are making this as a left outer join. Left outer join means employee table data definitely it is going to retrieve. Address table, some of the address is available, some of the address not available. If not available, then what it will store? It will store null. And you know, if you are accessing a method or a property on a null object, then what exception you generally get? You generally you will get null reference exception, and you need to handle that. And how we are handling? By using the question mark. So what exactly it is going to do? If the address is not available, then it is not going to be called this property. If the address object is not null, then it is going to call this address line property. Right? Let me run the application and show you the output. See, so these two employees having the address line fine, these two employees having the address line fine, but these two employees they do not have the address, and hence you can see it is not printing anything. Clear? Clear, guys?
Yes.
You might be if anybody having any question, they can ask. If you are not understanding the syntax or how the output is forming, any question you can ask. Okay, fine. So in
No
this
question
case,
for now, sir.
sorry.
No question for now.
Okay, fine. So in this case, you can see we are projecting the result to an anonymous type. So it is also possible to project the result to a named type, right? So let me show you these things. Employee result variable is there. So I'm creating a type with the employee result, and here you can see employee and address. The type is employee and address, and here I'm copying this one. Instead of this, I'm writing this, and then right, what are the property name? Right, what are the property name? Property name is employee. Say you can store this EMP within this employee variable, and the other property name is address. You can store this using the address property, right? That is fine. And then you can access this item.employee.name, and you can access this using item.address.address line, right? So you can also project the result to a named type. This is the clear, guys.
Yes.
Right. Now we need to understand how we can do the same thing using the method syntax, right? So method syntax means what are the things you need to do? You need to use group join. We have already discussed the. We have already discussed. Give me 1 minute. So if you want to implement left outer join using method syntax, three things you need to understand. One is you should know how the group join work. You should know how the select menu method is work, and you should know how the default if method is work. And we have already discussed this thing. So group join we have already discussed. Select menu we have already discussed. Default if method we have already we just discussed now, right? Default if empty method means if the data is not available, then it will store the default value, right? So by taking these three things, we can implement the left outer join in LINQ. Let me show you the examples. Right, copy paste. See, this is my first data source. So we are performing the group join, right? So group join means using method syntax, we are having the method group join. And to this method, I'm providing the my second data source. I'm providing the key selector. I'm providing the inner key selector. I'm projecting the result to this uh, anonymous type employee and address. And second thing, what you need to do is you need to use the select menu method. Within the select menu method, which property you want to make as default if empty. I want to make the property address as default event. So using the lambda expression, I'm calling this address property and I'm calling the default event empty method. That means what? If the address value is not available, then what you need to do is you need to make this as the you just need to store the default value, and once you call this is going to perform the left outer join, and finally I'm projecting the employee and the address. That's it. With this, run the application and you will also get the same out. See, we are getting the same output. Clear, guys? Right. So now what I'm going to do instead of this, okay. So instead of this, you can also project the output to a to a named type, right? So named type means what you can project the employee to a named type like this. So here you can say employee result. So you can see it is also projecting the output to a named type. Now, is it possible? Now, is it possible? See, in this case, if the address line is not available, it is printing the value like this, empty. Can we make some changes? Can we make some changes that if the address is not available, then it should display NA? Is that possible? Is that possible? Yes, that is possible. How? So, what I'm going to do instead of making this address as a property, I'm only fetching the address line. So, I'm making this property as address line. And what I'm doing here, I'm making this address, okay, if available, right? Then take the value. If not, then display NI. So now you can directly access this employee and you can access the value like this. Right? So you can project the result to a direct type, or you can also, if you are not interested with all this, so you can do some changes here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this as a string property. I'm making this as employee name. I'm making the ID, right? Public integer ID. So everything is possible. So you can project the data to complex type or employee dot name, right? And ID property is there. So what you can do, employee dot ID, right? So this is also possible. Now what you need to do, you need to access this employee name. Why I'm getting this error? Yes. Right. So here you can directly access the employee name address line properties. See, now it is printing the address line as NA. Clear, guys? Guys, clear or still anybody having any doubt? See, what I'm checking here, if the value is address value is null, right? Then I'm checking this null means it will become null, and if it becomes null, then it is going to display. It is going to store NA in this variable. And if this is not null, then this value will be stored inside this value. Whatever value that will be stored here, right? Any question from anyone?
No.
Right? Okay, fine. So this is fine. Now we are going to discuss how we can implement right outer join. But guys, remember there is no way in LINQ that you can perform the right outer join. There's no such syntax, right? So that means if such requirement comes, then what you will do? You just need to interchange the data sources, right? Interchange the data sources means currently this is my left data source and this is my right data source. And in this case, it is performing the left outer join. But your requirement comes that you need to perform the right outer join. In that case, left hand side table is employee, right hand side table is addresses. You need to perform the right outer join. This is not possible using LINQ. Then what you need to do? You only need to perform the left outer join, but just exchanging the data sources, right? Exchanging the data sources means instead of employee data source, you need to use the address data source. Let me show you these things practically. Right. So now you can see I'm making this as the left data source get address. Then I'm making this get employee as the right data source. Then I'm providing the condition. I'm using the into operator so that it will perform a group join. And now I'm calling this employee address group, and I'm calling this default if empty method. This will make the employee, because employee is the right hand side table, this will make the employee's value to null if that is not available, and then I'm selecting the add. Now run the application and see the output. see, see, you can see name, address line 1, 2, 5, 6, 15, 16. All addresses are coming, but for these two address line, there are no employee is there. So you can see the value is there. And if you want to store some null value, then that you can also store. See, if item.employee.name, if this value is null, what you need to store? You need to store NA. This is possible. You can write here and now run the application. See, NA is available. So this is how you need to work with left outer join and right outer join using LINQ. So there is no such right outer join is available. Once you understand the left outer join, if such requirement comes for right outer join, then you just need to interchange the data sources. That's it. Clear, guys? And in each example, whatever I'm showing, I have provided the comment section, right? So just don't blindly write the code, right? Just read the comments, right? Why I'm providing comments? This is for your understanding, right? Once you read the comment, then you will understand the things very clearly. And some of the changes I'm doing in the example, some additional things I'm showing, these things are not available in the documents, right? For example, if you want to display NA means you can write some code here, you can do the changes on directly where displaying. If the name is not available, you can also still display this value. These things are not available in the documents what I'm providing. If you are attending the sessions, then you will understand this. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right.
Sir.
Next, what we are going to discuss is full outer join. It's a very simple, right? Full outer join means it is going to retrieve all the elements. All the elements means all the matching elements from both the data sources plus all the non-matching elements from both the data sources. In that case, the non-matching element will take null value. That is the use of a full outer join. Full outer join is used to retrieve all the matching records from both the data sources involved in the join, as well as all the non-matching record from both the data sources. The on-matching data in such cases will take default value, that is now, right? But like the right outer join, LINQ also doesn't support full outer join directly. You cannot implement full outer join directly. Then how we can implement this? We can implement full outer join in a different manner. So how? Now, what you need to do, the two data sources you have, you need to find the right outer join. You need to implement left outer join. Once the left outer join and right outer join is implemented, then you need to join those queries by using the union method. That means the full outer join is nothing but the union operation of both left outer join and right outer join. And we have already discussed how to implement left outer join, how to implement right outer join, and how to implement union. So we have already discussed these three things. So implementing full outer join is not that difficult, right? Let me implement these things, right? So I'm going to use this employee class. This is ID name department and the collection properties, right? So this is my employee class. And then the second data source, what I'm going to use is the department class, right? Let me copy the code, go to the department class. This is my department class. So inside this, you can see inside this employee collection, we are having 10, 20, 10, 30, 30, and also having some employees whose department ID is 0. And coming to this department, you can see we are having 10, 20, 30, 40, and this is going to be 50, right? Some different department, 10, 20, 30, 40. So if you see some employees 10, 20, 30 is there using, and some employees department ID is 0, and here you can see some of the department which are not being used by any of the employees. So what is our requirement? We need to join a full outer join. Means we want all the employees plus all the department, whether they are having any employee or not. That is nothing but our full outer join. And how we can implement full outer join? We can implement full outer join by doing the left outer join, right outer join, and then combining this left outer join and right outer join using the union operation, right? Now, see, this is my left outer join. So in the case of a left outer join, in this example, I'm taking employee as the left data source and the department as the right data source. And here I'm providing, you can see here what I'm doing, this is my join, this is join, and once I use the into operator, then issue it will becomes the group join, because left to perform left outer join, what we need a group join, and then we need to call the default if empty method, and that is what I'm calling. And then I'm projecting the data. What data I'm projecting? I'm projecting the ID, name, and department name. And why I'm using this null collection null operator? Because sometimes the employee data is null, sometimes the employee object is null, sometimes the department object is null. And if null, then in that case, you will get null reference exception if you are not using this one. So this is left outer join, this is my right outer join. And you know what is right outer join? Just interchange the data sources. So here get all employees, get all department. So here get departments and get employees. And the rest of the things is going to be same. Here we are making the right hand side data source as empty. So you can see department. And here what is the right hand side data source? Employees. So I'm making this employee as the empty. And here I'm not accessing the EMP data. I'm accessing the employee, because these contain both existing and non-existing employees. And here I'm accessing the data from the department, not from the DEPT, because in this case, DEPT contains both existing and non-existing, right? And once you have performed the left outer and right outer join, then what you need to do? You need to union these two things. And if you know union is, there are two overloaded versions. One is taking II comparable and another one is this one, right? I'm not going to use I comparable comparer, right? What we have already discussed those things, right? So simply this is my left outer join. I'm doing union with the right outer join, and this is going to give me the full outer join. So in this case, any duplicate, they are simply ignored, and you will get the actual output, right? Let me run the application. See, employee ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And you can see the corresponding department. If the department ID is 0, you can see the value is not there. And for department admin and sales, there are no employees, right? So you can get the output like this when you perform the what? When you perform the left outer join, right? So now instead of the name, right? If the employee name is not available, what we need to do? We need to display NA. So what you need to do? You just need to write this syntax. And this ID, as it is a integer type variable, so you cannot store NA, right? If the ID is not available, then I can simply store 0. And if ID is not available, I can simply store 0, right? With these changes, now run the application and see the output. See, employee ID 0, right? And whenever the department ID for this two employee department is not available, so we are just printing NA, means not available. Clear, guys? Any question from anyone? How to implement full outer join? Guys,
No.
so instead of this, if you want to project the data to a named type, then that is also possible. So we have created one employee result. So employee department result, right? Let me, no, not this one, employee result. So what are the property we are returning? Employee ID, right? Employee ID, then the next one is employee name, employee ID, employee name, and a department name, right? Department name. So in this case, you can also use the named type. But once you use the named type, then you will face one problem, right? I'm getting this error. Okay. Okay. So you will face one problem. What is the problem? The problem is you will get duplicate data. Let me run the application. See, so the data is duplicated. So the uniqueness is not removed. The data you can say ID1 name Priti department ID. So you can say ID1 name Priti department ID. The duplicacy is not removed. And if you want to remove the duplicacy, then what you need to do? You need to use the other overloaded version, right? Which implement the eye comparable interface, right? If you go to the uh, definition of this method, the second overloaded version, you can see it is taking eye equality comparer. So, and we have already discussed there are 4 different ways that you can use to implement the eye comparable interface that you can try by yourself. Clear, guys? Why we are getting the duplicate
Yes.
data? Because in this case, the union method check the reference equality. The default comparer which is used by the union method, that method will check the reference equality, not the value equality. So we need to make sure that, okay, let me show you, let me implement this also. Where is the union method? Right? So we need to check the value equality. Okay. So inside this class, I'm going to override the equals and the case code method. And what is the type? Type is employee eraser, right? Type is employee eraser. And what is the employee ID? So we are checking employee ID with the employee ID. We are checking employee name with the employee name. And again, we are going to check what we need to check employee dot department name, right? And here ID has code. This is going to be employee ID has code, right? And this is going to be employee name has code. And then what we need to do, we need to get the department ID and department name has code, right? This is going to be department name. And then you need to use, where is that of, right? And what is the department name has code, right? With these changes, right, now run the application. Now you can see we are getting the data as expected. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right? So we have already discussed these things, right? Now, the last thing what we are going to discuss in today's session is cross join. So can anybody tell me what do you mean by cross join? Cross join, it is nothing but the Cartesian product. Cartesian product means what? Now each element of one data source will be joined with each element of the other data sources. For example, if your first data source contains 5 elements and the second data source contains 3 elements, then in that case, the resultant sequence will be going to contain 15 elements. That means each element is joined with each element of the other data source. In this case, no on keyword, no condition, nothing is there, right? So we do not require the common key property. We do not require to filter the data. We do not need to do any kind of things, because in this case, it is just simply going to do a mathematical product, mathematical calculation, or you can say mathematical addition, that each element of one data source will be joined with each element of the other data sources, right? Let me show you these things very easily. This is not that difficult. So this is my student. Okay, let me comment this. Let me close these things. So I'm going to use the student class. Okay, this is my student class having 5 elements, right? And this is my subject, right? Subject. It is going to contain 3 elements, right? It is going to contain 3 elements, right? Now, what is our requirement? We need to perform the cross check. So let us how to implement the cross check. So we need to implement the cross check between the student and the subject data sources. We can do this using both query syntax and method syntax. Let us first see how we can do this using the query syntax. And whenever we are going with the cross join, we do not need to use any join operator. We do not need to use the on condition. We do not need to specify the joining condition. No property, nothing is required. Simply, you just need to fetch the data from the data source and project the data. How? Let us see. So nothing is there, right? So this is my first data source, right? This is my first data source, and here this is my second data source. Nothing, you do not need to do anything special. Simply fetch the data source, project the data source. And here I'm projecting the student name, and from this data source I'm projecting the subject name to an anonymous type, and then I'm printing. As the student table contains 5 records and subject table contains 3 records, so simply what I can say, I can run the application and it is going to display me 15 records. In real-time application, you might get a chance to use these things because I never used this cross-chain in any of my project, right? But I don't know what is the exact requirement. But yes, the requirement, the concept is there, and you can also use this thing. See, Priti is joining with the 3 times because in subject there are 3 subjects. Priti subject 1, Priti subject 2, Priti LINQ. Priyanka subject 1, Priyanka subject 2, Priyanka subject 3. Like this, you will get the result. So this is how the cross join is implemented, right? If you want, right? If you want, then also student subject. See, right? So if you say currently what I'm doing, currently I'm projecting the result to a anonymous type. So you can also project the result to a named type and just create a class with the required properties and use that class, and you will get the same output as expected, right? So this is how you need to use cross join, and I'm not going to keep more focus on this cross join because it is not that important and you rarely get a chance to use this. But if you get a chance, you can do this thing. Clear, guys? There is no such a cross join method available in method syntax which you can use. Simply use this query syntax and get the data and display the data. Any question from anyone? Right? So that's it for today. Tomorrow we are going to discuss some important methods, right? So, how you can fetch the first record, how you can fetch the first record from the collection with some condition, how you can fetch a particular element based on the index position, how you can fetch the last element, right? If the last element is not available, then you want to fetch it, then how you can fetch the default value. So those things we are going to discuss tomorrow, right? And this Sunday, we are going to discuss automapper. Automapper is one of the important concepts which we are going to be discussed in this Sunday. Tomorrow, we are going to continue our discussion on LINQ. That's it for today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.